Okay, Vincent Campanella. I was working for Leidy Construction, still I'm working for Leidy Construction. Well, the executive director, we started with Wayne, and about halfway through our year, Wayne decided he was going to retire. So I finished the year with Cheryl. Well, immediately preceding me, I went through the chairs with Bob Askins and Carl Stewart. And then immediately after me, I was in that odd year with Gary Height. Gary was supposed to follow me in the chairs, and then obviously was passed away and wasn't able to fulfill that. So Mike Riley stepped in and fulfilled his role, and then Robert Seghetti followed Mike. Well, I would say the most memorable issue I faced, and I would say the biggest issue I faced, was Wayne's retirement. Obviously, executive directors in organizations like ours, and especially in this AGC chapter, it doesn't happen very often. We've been blessed in most cases with longevity in our leadership, which has always been very good. And so halfway through the year, when Wayne decided that he was ready to step down and turn over the reins, that was by far the biggest thing. And obviously, it takes a lot of attention. It's a serious issue when you're trying to replace an executive director, because the fit and the culture of the organization is very critical. Luckily, Wayne had been working closely with Cheryl for a number of years, and essentially preparing her to take over the reins of the organization. And so it was an easy transition and an easy decision for the board to unanimously vote Cheryl in to be the succeeding executive director. So what could have been a tumultuous situation for the chapter turned out to be actually a very, very easy and very straightforward transition. I did. One of the things that was coming to the forefront in our industry was the issue of workforce development. And it was starting to make its way through the national, through AGC of America, and I was starting to, just in some of the previous, coming into the chairs, going to the meetings, it was starting to surface as a big issue in the region as well. So that was the one single issue that I made as kind of my primary goal, was to start our move towards developing a workforce development task force or a committee to start to look at things. We initially looked at it as more of a regional issue, so we worked very closely with the AGC of Washington as well as the Oregon chapter, and just through connections I had, meeting all their incoming presidents and the people that were serving at the same time I was in 2014. And so we started talking about some regional things that we could do, but I think it very quickly morphed into just a chapter type of thing, because every chapter had a different issue to deal with, a different dilemma to deal with, and just primarily based on the market. And so we got some traction going in 2014. We got the task force set up, and it was more than just the AGC. We sat down with the Home Builders Association. We sat down with a number of the organizations and the agencies around here that all have to do with workforce development and apprenticeships and trainings, training systems, as well as the unions. And at least started with that, and since then we've made quite a bit of traction, and had some good programs developed from that, and it's still moving forward. It's clearly, as I think we got into it, it became very clear it's a very long-term situation and a very fluid situation, very economic based. We're still dealing with how do we deal with the schools and those type of things, but we got the ball rolling, and I think it's starting to gain some good momentum, and with the changes in leadership over the years. Through our chairs, people have still carried the flag for the workforce development, so we're still working hard on it. I was thinking about this question on what events, and there's a number of things. I think one of the things that we did when I was president, and I'll call it an event, was we hired Luke. Another thing that was going on at the time, we were coming out of the recession, the 2008, 2010, 2012 recession, and so obviously our membership had dropped a little bit, and we were looking at focusing heavily on how to build our membership back up again, especially in Tri-Cities. We'd opened the Tri-City office, and we were looking to really try to grow that down there and really start to get some momentum down in Tri-Cities. And we made the decision as a board to go out and hire an employee for the chapter that was focused solely on membership growth, reach out and touch people. And we interviewed a number of people that summer of 2014, and Luke came in and interviewed, and it was, I don't think there was any question after he walked out of the room we'd found the right guy. And he's in the room, so I'll be polite, but there's no question we put the right guy in the seat there. Just his personality, the dynamics, and the kind of charge forward attitude that Luke had, that he brought to the table, it has been absolutely stellar, and it's worked out great for us. Obviously, the chapter membership has grown our membership dramatically in the Tri-City area. We're just out there more. We've got somebody out there in the community focused on going and talking to people, and obviously, getting people to join is one thing, but then retaining them is another. And he's done a good job of not, overselling the AGC, but really selling the benefits and the long-term benefits of what the AGC can do for people. It was we were still coming out of the recession. I think obviously Spokane and Eastern Washington is a different dynamic than Western Washington. We don't have the deep drops in our economy. We don't have the real high highs, so we kind of bump around in the middle. But we also recover slower than I think most of the West Side does. We just don't have that dynamic economy that just brings things back as quickly as what Seattle, Portland market types do. So we were still coming out of the doldrums of the recession, but things were going well. Again, focus on membership and gaining and growing our membership, and obviously the dues are a big deal, but also sustaining. I mean, we were working very hard to make sure we were putting in place, the things and the feature, the things that the AGC could deliver to our members, and making sure that we could retain members and really deliver on the value that the AGC brings to all of our members. But it was a struggle. We were obviously the retro payments were still down a bit. We weren't getting the refunds just because people weren't working, so we weren't seeing the number of hours in doing that. So we were still operating, I think, in a negative income, but it was starting to get better. It was starting to get close to zero. We had made some good decisions, I think, in the way we were dealing with our budgets that kept things working well, but limited the amount of risk we were taking and things like that. People were starting to come back to our events. Our convention was well attended that year. The golf tournaments were well attended. We were still getting good participation in our events, so people were starting to come back, and I think starting to definitely partake in a lot of the social things that were going on, which was a good thing to see. We've got a great staff, obviously, going through the transition from Wayne to Cheryl. Cheryl had some different ideas of how she wanted to organize the staff, kind of reassign some of the responsibilities among the existing staff. But I recall everything that I went through my entire time on the board. The staff has always been fantastic. I mean, we've got a staff that is so focused on, delivering things for the membership and always being a resource for the membership. Planning great events, always being very attentive to the financial side of things. I think the adjustments that Cheryl made to the staff assignments, I think, actually have been very positive. I think kind of distributed some of the assignments and things like that during the time I was on in the chairs, as well as after on the board. We were going through the transition on the plan center, which was a very difficult but necessary decision to make. And so obviously Mary's role changed from focusing solely on the plan center to her time was able to spend on other things. So she's moved into the education side of things. So, we've been able to really focus, I think, people strategically on things that were where they needed to be. And from what I've seen and everything I saw from my lasting years on the board, things have gone very, very well. And then with Kurt here as in the safety seat, and now obviously with Luke focusing on membership and industry relations, we've got fantastic people on the staff focusing on really things that they're really good at and really passionate about. Well, I grew up in a kind of an industry family. My dad was an architect in Seattle and owned his own firm for many, many years. And so during the summers, when I got old enough, I was actually working construction during the summers. He'd get me on with one of his companies that he was doing a lot of work with, and I'd work as a laborer, or one year I worked as a truck driver and just delivered material and stuff like that. And then a couple summers I spent in the laborers union over in Seattle working on large projects. And my initial thing, I wanted to be a doctor. Maybe everybody does. And so I actually started in college in pre-med. And back in the late 70s, early 80s, pre-med was not the place to be if you're, a typical middle-class white kid. So the numbers just weren't there, even though I still had the interest. I got a real interest in construction working during the summers, and I liked doing it. Not so much the menial labor, the field task, but I was starting to learn about what was going on in the offices and things like that, and I really enjoyed that. And I got some exposure to estimating with one of the companies that I was working with. They let me go in the office a few times, and I sort of enjoyed that. And I always hung around my dad's office a lot, so I was always around drawings and talking to his folks and the architects, and so I knew how to read drawings and knew all about specs and things like that. And when a summer came along that I kind of had to make a decision on whether I was going to continue with pre-med or make a choice, my dad was kind of pushing hard on, you should think about construction management. And I was at Seattle U at the time in pre-med, and just bit the bullet, made the decision to transfer over to the University of Washington and get into the CM department, and never really looked back. I've loved it. But that's, it's I think exposure to this stuff. I think having my dad there obviously pushed me hard to do that, and my mom pushed hard to try to keep. My mom was pushing hard to get me into the architecture side. I didn't want to be an architect. Well, the project that brought me to Spokane was the Northtown Mall, which is the large shopping mall here in Spokane. Back in late '80s, I was working for a developer in Seattle, Dave Saby, who had a construction division, and he bought the mall and needed somebody to come over and run the renovation. It was set up to be a 2-year, $100 million double-decking, adding department stores and parking garages, and what I think best case scenario, 2 years turned into be a 4-year project, and fairly significant. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces when you're dealing with major department stores and banks when you're talking about the significance of a loan that size. And design build project. We were doing most of the design in-house, and ultimately turned it over to an outside architect to help kind of corral the design that was was more attractive to the national retailers, the Sears and the JCPenney's and the national folks out there that are looking at look at these kind of projects. And so that's probably the biggest single project I ran in my career. But when I was kind of destined to go back to Seattle at some point, Saby got out of the construction business and decided to close up shop on the construction side, and so I left him, and that's when I decided to stay in Spokane and moved over to Leidig back in 1993. And since then, I've been involved in lots of projects at WSU. I got Leidig into GCCM and design build projects. We were pretty much a hard bid company when I first moved over there. Paul Leidig was still alive, and that Paul built the company on hard bid and kind of a hard driver guy. But I learned a lot from Paul. Great super guy and amazing person. And then Larry Swartz then, and then now the new leadership that we're transitioning to now that I'm part of. But just lots of projects around Spokane. I mean, obviously, Eastern Washington, our market's pretty good size, so a lot of projects at Central and Ellensburg. We kind of got a good market niche over there and built several projects on that campus. And then I unfortunately stopped running projects and started running people. So I got more into oversight and things like that, which has actually been very enjoyable because we've got fantastic staff, and it's been fun, watching our staff grow and gain experience and grow into their leadership positions, which has really been great. I would say no question technology. The influx of technology into the construction industry, and it's still changing. And I mean, not only are the I'm going to call them kids, the younger people that are coming into the industry now, they're so much more tech savvy just because they grew up with it. I mean, I never grew up with, just like you, we never grew up with computers. When I started in the industry in '83, we didn't have computers. We didn't get a computer in my office until I actually moved to Spokane. And we got computers, and they were very rudimentary, and you were basic spreadsheets and things like that. We didn't get email until, I don't know, the early '90s. So it's been, I would say, just not only just the overall technology that has gripped the society. We're seeing technology in the industry now from going from normal serving equipment, theodolites, and to laser levels, to now total stations and the robotic things that are going on now, which are just absolutely amazing. The technology changes in the design industry, going from 2D drawings and hand drawings to AutoCAD, and now to Revit, and the things that we're doing with Revit with 2D or 3D, 4D, and 5D type of things within our computer programs and scheduling and things like that. So, the technology changes have been dramatic, and they've been all happened in the last 20 years. So it's been almost being fed by a fire hose type of thing. And for guys my age that didn't grow up with the technology, growing up playing video games and really having that exposure to technology, it's been I'm not quite as tech savvy as many of our younger project managers and estimators and the guys that I work with, but it's amazing how well they grip and they accept and embrace the changes that are going on, and they just come to it so easily. And that's not that it's like phasing out type of us old dudes, but it's definitely more of a challenge for us, I think, to embrace those things than it has been for the younger guys. It's been great. I mean, I love the computer programs we use, and they're the time-saving measures that are going in. But the technology has been amazing to watch. And then I would also say in a really great way, just the number of people that are getting into the industry. And I think our ability, our major focus with workforce development was to change the perception of the industry with younger people. That it's not just a job you accept if there's nothing else to do, that it's a career. And really selling kids on what you can do with yourself and what opportunities are available in the industry, not only in the field, as a carpenter, laborer, a pipe fitter, and the things you can do there, and just the opportunities that are available there, and the money you can make, as a career, and what you can provide for your family. That this is something that you can do really well with. But just what you can do, all the other opportunities that are available there in the office with estimating, supervision, project management, and the normal things that have been out there like that. But just what you can do, and then also seeing the number of kids going into school that are actually taking construction management. We've just with the intern programs that we employ with schools and things like that, these kids are amazing. I mean, they're smart. They are coming out of school very well trained. So the industry has done a great job interfacing with the colleges and the universities and the curriculum and making sure. I mean, I look back at my CM degree from the University of Washington, and it pales by comparison the training I got based on, especially in project management. I took one project management course. That's all they had. That's what they offered. Now all the courses that they do all have that project management type of approach to things and that type of thing. So they're getting a lot more exposure, and the industry's had a huge play in crafting and helping craft that curriculum, so these kids are just so much more prepared when they come out of school. Paul was one of those guys. He either liked you or didn't like you.
Yeah.
If he didn't like you, you had a kind of a tough time.
Yeah.
If he liked you, it was a good thing. And Paul liked me, he and I always got along great. I think he respected me. I respected the hell out of him. He was just a fantastic guy, and but ethical beyond all reproach. The guy's word, his handshake was his bond, and I just respected that tremendously, because I think in some cases some of the industry had gone away from that, and I think this town is a lot still based on that, but I think Seattle has gone away from that. I just saw that even in our office, things are different over there than they are here. Over here, you have friendships that go back 30, 40 years, and people still shake hands, and that's the deal, and that's huge, and that was Paul, and I think Paul really did a great job of telling people, training everybody, and that was the expectation of your performance in the office. Your word was your bond. Yeah. And if you couldn't do that, you shouldn't work there. Yeah. And so he was very good about not just telling you that. He lived, he was an example of how to do that. And Larry was exactly the same way. And Larry learned under Paul, and so Larry has exactly the same approach to things. But I walked in there, and here's Paul. We were actually the Harper's building over in Post Falls. We were bidding that. So, and Paul loved concrete tilt-up, and so Paul was actually doing the concrete takeoff on that project. Giant tilt-up walls, 10 key, green ledger form, doing all the takeoff, green ledger. We had computers in the office, but that wasn't Paul. He was old school, and he did the entire concrete takeoff and pricing, and did everything on a 10 key. Yeah. And I was sitting, my office was opposite from his in our little courtyard thing in our office, and I could hear him in there with the 10 key. There's all the tape coming out. We did estimates, and Paul would literally give the estimate to our payroll gal, Sherry, and Sherry would take it in her office and run a 10 key on all the numbers, and just make sure the numbers all added, because he didn't trust the computer. Yeah. And he didn't trust the computer to do the math. So it was hilarious. That was our MO for all of our bids for 3 years while Paul was there. It was pretty interesting. I think if I look back at the history of Leidig, I think Paul obviously was the president of the AGC back in 1980. Larry was president, I think, in 89, 90, somewhere in there. So we've had a long legacy with the chapter. But I think, and I don't know why we joined way back when, but I would say just knowing Paul. Paul was a person that wanted to be involved in everything that was associated with the industry. He was a big industry advocate, and I think obviously as one of the more longer standing companies, we've been around for 60 plus years now. Paul felt it was important to be associated with organizations that promoted the industry. Obviously, we're union, so union negotiation is very critical for us. But also, an industry that is tuned in with everything, an agency or association that is not only an advocate for the industry, but tuned in with what's going on, things that affect our industry. So the advocacy that we do through governmental affairs and that type of thing, the outreach, safety, obviously, has increased. The focus on safety has increased over the last number of years. Specifically probably over the last 10 to 20 years, but even back then there was a safety focus for most companies. And but we belong today, we continue to belong today, because we want to be involved in an association that speaks for our industry, that is a tireless advocate for our industry. We want that connection, that networking connection with other contractors. We want to be able to sit down. We can all sit in this. One of the beauties of this, especially our chapter, is we can be friendly competitors. Garco, we're raging competitors with each other when it comes to bids, but we can the next day we can sit down and we can come together on anything that is a positive thing for the industry, and always come to an agreement on that. And that, I think, is one of the beauties of the AGC. They always afford us that opportunity to sit down together and always agree on the things that are the best things for our industry, moving our industry forward, and always focusing on the things that are most important for making sure that we're always in the forefront of where construction needs to be nationally, regionally, and locally. And the AGC definitely allows us to focus on that, and we want to be a part of that discussion, that conversation, and helping shape where we go. And that is the primary reason why we're members of the AGC. We are the AGC.